Welcome back to Mondays on Montlake. I am your host, Montlake Miguel. You guys know what it is, man. It's been a crazy weekend. We had lots of recruits in town today. We're going to start with that, and then we'll move into this thing we've been doing where we're looking at games from before and talking about how the new roster might help make those games go differently. So first, let's get into the big recruiting weekend here on Montlake. It's the first of I think three over the next 3 weeks. We had some really big players that have come in that we're hoping are going to commit to Jed Fish and his staff this weekend. Right now, on the list that I have, I see Blake Roscoff, Compf, Chaz Gray, Dante Tyson, Camille Loud, Tavita Nonu, Zarek Sidney, Titus Osterman, and running back Jeremy Adejanu. I'm not pronouncing his name right. I'll remember it and I'll get it for next time, I promise. There's been no commits as of 10:21 on Sunday night yet. A bunch of rumors I've been swirling around about a wide receiver. So maybe we're hearing something. I'm not sure. It was something we saw online, but we don't know yet. But rumors are flying all over the internet. So hopefully Jed Fish is true to form and gets a couple of those guys in. Now, let's move on to what the meat and potatoes of this episode is about. I want to take a look back at the Ohio State game. It was 24-6. The national narrative was that Ohio State came in here and beat us up. And I'm here to say that that narrative is incorrect. A game that is a one-score game with 5 minutes to go in the game is not a one-score game. And that's what happened with the Ohio State game. Now, as we take a look at the Ohio State game, we gotta look at kind of everything that led up to this, because this was the first game, like we had talked about last week, how a lot of these Big Ten schools didn't show just like a complete talent gap between starter to starter. It was when we started getting to that second level of players, our second string, our third string guys, they were not up to par like the guys on these other teams, and we just got beat for a lack of depth. And I think that that's kind of what really happens when you're looking at this game. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of context here. So when we're looking at this game, just like the Michigan game, you can go to halftime, and at halftime the score is 7-3 Ohio State. Washington is leading in total yards 165 to 138. Washington is leading in time of possession 18 minutes and 23 seconds to 11:37. They're also winning the turnover battle 1-0. Uh, Ohio State has gotten 2 sacks at this point, and Washington hasn't had any. The big thing that really starts rearing its ugly face when you start looking at this first half isn't a deficiency in what we have talent-wise and what we're able to achieve on the field against the best defense in college football. Um, I'm going to take moment one. So Ohio State drives down on their first, or their, I think it's their first or their second drive. I mean, and they're looking good. They're running the ball on us on this drive. Don't get me wrong. They get down to the 2 yard line. The Washington defense holds them on 4th and 2 and turns the ball going the other way. It was a huge moment for the defense. It really swung all the momentum, and it should have been a bigger play than what it actually was. The problem that happens after all that is on the next drive, we get the ball. We run a couple nice plays. I mean, we run a nice pass down the middle to Desmond Roebuck. It gets called back, or it doesn't get called back. The pass counts, but interference on the sideline brings the ball back. 2 more plays happen. Jed Fish loses his mind. We get another penalty, brings us back after we already started gaining these yards back. There was a screen pass to Jonah Coleman that went well. All these good things are happening, and then we get another penalty. We get a false start, and that pushes us back. We end up throwing, I think, a little wide receiver screen to Raiden Vinebright, and he gets like 6 or 7 yards, but at this point, it's like 3rd and 17, 3rd and 14, something like that. And it doesn't do anything, and we end up having to punt. This becomes a trend throughout the game, and as we kind of go into what happened in this game, you start realizing that the Huskies were in control. When it comes to this halftime, when you get to halftime and you start looking at who was moving the ball, the Dogs had two drives that were 11, 12 plays and ate up a bunch of the clock. Like I said, we had the ball for 18 minutes. I think we had another 5-play drive. We were in the red zone 3 different times in the first half. 3 different times and only came away with 3 points. So we're going to kind of go and take a look at what that was, because those plays, like if you're watching that Husky offense in the first quarter and a half, you're like, they actually can move the ball. The self-inflicted wounds were the big story of that first half, and why what should have been maybe a 14-7 game at halftime or a 17-7 game at halftime was a 7-3 halftime deficit. Now, the goal line, the first possession that we drive down in the second quarter, we get all the way to the 2-yard line. And when you're watching these plays, DeMond's hitting Denzel Boston, DeMond's hitting Roebuck. Jonah has a huge run. These guys, that we're looking really good against this Ohio State offense. We get down to the 2-yard line. We have one play that doesn't do much. Then we get another penalty. It's an offsides on Gary and Hatchett. That brings the ball back even more. We run another play, and then there's a sack, and then another penalty. Next thing you know, we're not able to go for another touchdown. It's 4th down. We have to kick the field goal. We got points out of it. It was 3-0 at that point, but it should have been 7-0, being that we were driving and got all the way down to the 2-yard line. Instead of a touchdown, that hurts. Then you have the penalties on the drive that we talked about before. Guys jumping off sides just killed us, because in the moments that the guys jumping off sides and then the penalties on the coaching staff and the sidelines, that is just, man, it's killer. When you get penalties that have nothing to do with the players, that are mental lapses like the jumping off sides, the false starts, those are things that can all be cleaned up. And they really killed us in this game. I'm really believing that this offensive line that is more experienced, even though we do got a true freshman starting at left tackle, I'm not going to dismiss that. But guys like Landon Hatchett and Drew as a party, Champ and Mills are both sophomores, but they both played a ton last year. And then you got them to bring Cody Green along, and then you have the big backups that like Gary and Hatchett and Colt Dietrich. You have these guys that are all experienced players, and they're guys that are going to be able to take those moments, refine them in their own minds, and then not commit those penalties the next time. And that's why I think that's going to be big. And I think Jed Fish and his coaching staff are going to realize they can't cause, especially against teams like Ohio State, they can't cause momentum shifts the way that they did. As a result, it's 7-3, and as we're going into halftime, we drive down again. We get into the red zone. For some reason, Jed Fish decides to do a fake field goal, and it's an ugly play. You know, I get the idea of trying to catch your opponent with their pants down, but it's not what happened. And I think that against teams like Ohio State that have the best defenses in college football, you got to play it by the numbers, man. If kicking is your best idea, then going in at 7-6, let's do that. Let's make that happen. Let's not try plays that, if you're going to put the ball in somebody's hand on 4th down, I'm not going to give my kicker or my punter the ability to try to throw the ball. It makes zero sense to me. So those plays are kind of they're just self-inflicted wounds, where if you look at the overarching theme of the game, Washington was hanging punch for punch with Ohio State. Ohio State ends up driving the ball down, and the next major play that happens in the game is it looks like Washington's running almost like an umbrella zone. If you look at the replay, you'll see all the guys kind of standing right on the goal line, all the guys in the secondary on the goal line. It looks like they're doing like a zero blitz, trying to get to Julian Sayin. He runs a quick under. There's nobody there to tackle him. he takes it 15, maybe 18 yards for a touchdown. And I think that's a play that if I'm Ryan Walters, I probably want back. I probably want back. And I think a guy like Ryan Walters is a good enough defensive coordinator where I'm not going to kill him on that. So we're at halftime. It's 7-3. We're not feeling bad about it. I mean, 7-3 against the number one team in the country, and we're unranked at this point. We're feeling good. The big problem happens right before halftime when Carver Willis goes down. Up until this point where Carver Willis is our starting left tackle, we're leading in yards. We're leading in time of possession. There's 2 sacks that happened in the first half, but none of them were killers to us. We're getting the job done, and we're not getting out physicaled by this Ohio State team. Carver Willis goes down. Maximus McCree comes in cold. From that point on, 69 yards or 62 yards the rest of the game by the offense. The offense becomes inept. A big problem with this is because McCree's, like I said, fresh off the bench, it simplifies. They have to simplify what they're doing with the playbook. They got to give more help to him. And as a result, it leaves other things open. In the exotic offensive packages that Jedfish has, you can't play them to their furthest extent because you have somebody that you got to keep protected because he's new in the game, and then he's also going against, I mean, number one draft picks in like Curry and Styles and Arvell Reese. These guys they're not just good college players. They are studs. They're guys that are going to be superstars in the NFL, and you got to protect against him. And unfortunately, they just can't do it. As we're looking forward to this next year, the depth along that offensive line, having starting quality guys that are backing up your starters is going to matter. You're not going to see a huge drop if Cody Green goes out, Colt Dietrich has to go in, or if John Mills has to slide out to left tackle and Dietrich comes in and plays guard. You're going to see guys that are filling in that are not brand new or are not a huge step down. And unfortunately for Washington, guys like McCree and Fasolo, compared to Carver Willis, were just gigantic steps down, and they had to do a lot that hamstrung the team and didn't allow them to play to their full ability because you have guys that just couldn't get the job done as well as others. As a result, we get this gigantic second half collapse. Like I said, they only had 69 yards this whole second half. You end up getting 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and it looks like by the end it's a 24-6 game. Even though, like I said, even with that backup offensive line, they still hung in there till about 5 minutes to go in the game. I think it was 5 minutes and like 30 seconds to go in the game, and it's a 14-6 game. That's an 8-point game right there, and it's only one score away. It's only one score away. And we're doing this without all of our starters and all of our guys in. If you look to what this new team has, the star power they have, especially along the offensive line, you have the quarterback, and this receiving core, while it's not completely known yet by everybody else, if you watch them during the spring, it was like last year during the spring. That receiving core was able to do a lot last year. Guys like Desmond Roebuck, who nobody knew about, we have guys like that. And then we have a guy like Rashid Williams, who you've seen him flash even when he's played. He just has to stay healthy. You mix that with some of this other talent, guys like Moss, guys like Lawson, it's going to leave a lot of weapons for Damon Williams. And then with all these running backs in this room, we might not have a guy that's as good as Jonah Coleman, but I think we have a bunch of guys that are as good as Adam Muhammad. And I think that when you see Jaden Lamar, when you see Trey Cooley, when you see Quade Carr, you're going to see a lot of – and if Washington is able to get back, man, Washington was a stud last year when he played. You're going to have a pool of guys that can do pretty much anything, and I think it's going to add a lot to what we bring to the table. And I think this Washington team has a way higher ceiling than what anybody thinks because of that depth along the offensive and defensive lines. As a result, because of all the offense not being able to move, the defense gets stuck on the field a ton. And you start seeing them being able to run all over them. You start seeing them being able to throw the ball. Julian Sand looks really – I mean, he throws for way more yards in the second half. And as a result, I mean, you're looking here at the third quarter, it's 14-6, and now all of a sudden Ohio State is leading in yards 267 to 215. Um, now they have 167 passing yards, so they throw for 100 yards in the third quarter, and then by the fourth quarter, when you look at the final game stats, Ohio State has 357 total yards of offense. They threw for 208 yards, and all of a sudden Julian Sand looks great, but it's also a big reason that you're seeing this is because this defense ends up getting stuck on the field for so long. I think when you see what Washington's added to their defensive line, when you see what they already have a really strong linebacking core, and I think having a healthy linebacking core, you're going to have guys that are going to be big and tough that can sit there and play with the Ohio States like a ZRS or an X-Ray Alexander, and then still have your quick and really gritty guys like Manu and Buddha to come in and play a lot. And then that secondary is going to be underrated. Dylan Robinson was already good. He was already good last year. He was just a true freshman. He's going to be really good this year. Having the transfer for Virginia come in and play, you have guys with big time experience, and then a guy like Rashawn Clark, who I think is only going to get better and better and better in that safety room, while young, is extremely talented, and you're going to have to watch out for them. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this Ohio State game. I think when you kind of button it all up and you look at it as a whole, it was lost because of missed opportunities, some poor decisions, um, and when you think about the penalties and injuries, they really show off the lack of depth and what we couldn't do and what we couldn't bring to the table when we really needed it because we just didn't have the horses after our starters went down. That's why the more I rewatch these games, the more I believe that Fish isn't building a roster to beat elite teams for a half. He's trying to build a roster to beat them for four quarters. And as we can see, the last two games that I show, we were able to outplay a lot of these teams in the first half. We just have to be able to be consistent and being able to take it throughout the rest of the game. Um, the final thing that I'm going to actually bring up is I want to talk about Damon Williams. In a lot of these big games, the one thing I'm really noticing, and you notice this on, I think it's the first drive of the game, where it's a third down, it's a makeable third down. Damon drops back and just misses Jonah Coleman wide open. If he sees Jonah Coleman, he hits him. It's a first down, and that drive keeps going. And who knows? Maybe we score on that first drive. You'll see plays like this throughout this game, but also the other games that we lost, where it almost feels like the game's moving a little too quick for him, and he misses some of these open players. I think with another year under his belt, I mean, he's at the Elite 11 right now doing the work. The game is going to slow down for him one more time before it's all over in college football. And when it does, he's going to be able to hit those guys and make those big plays. And that's what I believe a year of development in Jedd Fisch's system will do for him. So next week, we're going to get into the Oregon game. I think the Oregon game has got a lot of real interesting things to kind of break down because it was a real close game, another one-score game in the fourth quarter. When we do, we'll kind of I'll kind of break down that game and then take how all the similarities of these big games that we lost, they have a lot of things in common. And then what we've done with the personnel and the year of experience and the guys getting bigger and stronger that's going to change that. All right, so make sure you guys tune in next week. Mondays on Montlake. I'm your guy, Montlake Miguel. Until next week, same bat time, same bat channel. You know what it is. Go Dogs.